What's going on, Kuma Corporation? It's been a while, hasn't it? I've been honestly incredibly busy this year going through PT school, and I sort of just couldn't will myself to write scripts and edit content. Let's just say that the burnout was very, very real. But now that the academic year has come to an end, I'm back at it once again with a new video. I've already finished and uploaded a few shorts, so if you haven't seen those, please go watch them and hit the like button. But I really wanted to squeeze in one more long format video before the end of 2024, and what better content is there than to make another episode of the best series on the internet? What's up, fellow nudists? Welcome to Slurpin Across Japan, the best segment on Bubby Eats where I talk about and rate different noodle restaurants and let you know if it's a smash or pass. We're on a mission to find the most mind-blowing, taste bud tickling bowls of noodles in the country, so grab your chopsticks, loosen your belt buckles, and let's get slurping. Now, I know a lot of you that may come across my channel out there are typically going to be first or second time travelers to Japan that are looking for great recommendations to eat. And as first or second time travelers, you're probably also going to be sticking to the beaten path within Tokyo. So think like Shinjuku, Harajuku, Shibuya, Akihabara, and stuff like that. But if you're a true noodle nut, a broth boss, a slurp scholar, a chopstick, something, I can't think of another alliteration, but I think you get my point. I highly recommend you take the road less traveled and explore further outside the main parts of Tokyo. You might just find that it's well worth your time, especially if it's planned in advance, which definitely was not the case for me. Back in 2023, I lost my Nintendo Switch with all of my hard-earned shiny Pokemon friends on it. After going through my mind palace, I realized the only possible explanation was that I left it on the train to the airport when I went to pick up my family who had flown in after me. After several phone calls, I was actually able to get in touch with the Lost and Found office for the Keisei line and confirm that my Switch was in fact at their office, which was great. The only problem was that their office was on the outside of Tokyo and I was all the way in Osaka. So I made the 6.5 hour round trip journey on the bullet train to recover my console while my family was exploring Osaka's food scene without me, and when I finally turned up to the office, I found out it wasn't open yet. At this point, my stomach was whining at me more intensely than a child in line for a ride at Disneyland, and that was when I caught a whiff of something absolutely delicious. Almost cartoonishly, I followed the scent and found the most incredible looking hole-in-the-wall ramen shop that was just packed, full of customers at 9 in the morning. I knew right then and there that this had to be good. Kunimoto-san, who owns MENGOKORO Kunimoto, was a regular office worker who one day realized his passion was to make ramen. So for 4.5 years, he honed his craft at Musashi, Kenya, and eventually opened his own store. The first bowl I tried was their Noko Ramen, or rich ramen, which consists of a thicker broth with a seafood base. Instead of a typical ramen you might be thinking of, this is what people call a dorodoro no ramen, which loosely kind of means mushy, but the closest explanation I can really offer, instead of mushy, think creamy, where the noodles are coated in a thick sauce. The thicker broth was incredibly flavorful and had a moderate anchovy-like flavor, but for those of you who aren't used to consuming seafood, it might be a bit on the strong side for you. Either way, it was wonderful at coating the noodles, which were just the absolute highlight of the dish anyway. The noodles themselves were about a medium firm, so kind of soft with a bit of chew. I also had their special ramen with shoyu broth, which came with chicken and pork chashu, and various other toppings. The shoyu broth was by far one of the best ones I've experienced in Japan. The flavor was exceptional, very hearty and clean. I will say that the chicken chashu was actually surprisingly good. Lastly, the tsukemen, which was absolutely incredible, came with plenty of toppings and a rather large serving of noodles as well. Surprisingly, the accompaniment for the tsukemen wasn't the typical thick sauce-like broth that I'm so used to, but instead was a bit thinner and very, very concentrated. One bite was really all it took for me to understand why they're better known for their tsukemen. The true star of the flavor for realistically any bowl of ramen has to be in the broth. As I said earlier, the shoyu broth at Kunimoto was stellar and certainly my favorite shoyu in Tokyo, and now a top candidate for my favorite ramen broth in Japan. The Noko ramen broth was great as well, but I've actually had better seafood based broths. The sukemen, on the other hand, really blew me away in terms of flavor, and I have to say I enjoyed that the most. After experiencing the Noko, shoyu, and sukemen options, I have to say I enjoyed the Noko the most in terms of mouthfeel. Having my noodles moderately coated in a delicious thick broth was such an enjoyable slurp experience, combined with that satisfying chew of the medium firm noodles. You really can't have a good ramen experience without good noodles, and Kunimoto makes some of the best. I've personally always been #team firm, but the slightly softer medium firm noodles here have actually made me reconsider. I've said in previous videos that it's difficult these days to find bowls of ramen under 1,000 yen, and this is one of the few locations that not only can you find one, but also get a huge bang for your buck. The options I selected were roughly between 900 to 1100 yen. I think in retrospect, my ideal bowl would combine the mouthfeel of the Noko, the flavor of the sukemen, and the topping selection of the special shoyu, which I guess now that I think about it, kinda just sounds like a sukemen shop that I still need to make a video on. But staying on topic, when looking at the scores for MENGOKORO Kunimoto, we're averaging out to a whopping 4.6, which means that I can officially rate them certified bubs. Well, thank you all so much for watching this episode of Slurpin Across Japan. I had a blast making this episode, even though I kind of forgot my workflow and the audio might not really sound all that great, but anyway, at the end of the day, even though I was stressed out about losing my Switch, I never would have stumbled across this place without that happening. So even if things seem to be going wrong, take every opportunity to make the most of it. You might just find one of the best eats of your life, and in my case, have a heartfelt reunion with my favorite Pokemon, like my shiny Sylveon and Machamp. Oh, champion! Chopstick champion! Full circle, nailed it.